About 2 weeks ago, we built our very first fire in our stove for the season. And something about just having a fire in the stove just makes fall feel very official and our home feel very charming. And these fall mornings are some of my favorites. So usually after our fire and Bible reading and coffee in the morning, we set about to accomplish whatever it is on our to-do list. And I was kind of caught rejoicing over the fact that my garden was basically being tied up for the season, and all I have left is just harvesting a few things. And then I thought, you know what? I should try to tackle my mom's garden. I have a separate garden than hers. Mine is totally tillable. I till it every spring and every fall, typically. But my mom's garden, it has so much potential. It is filled with raised beds and pea gravel paths and has such a French style to it. It just needs a lot of work because it hasn't been at the top of her priority list, obviously, for the last couple of years. She's had a whole lot of other more important things to do on her plate. So I have been devoting most of my days the last couple of weeks to this garden, trying to get it in order. And before that, it was all of my pumpkin picking because we got a very early frost this year, and all of my squash and pumpkins needed to be brought in. It's funny because the day I went out and filmed this exact shot, it was so warm, and the next day I went out to the garden and this was the shot that I got. And so all of my squash had to be brought in, and we got a lot of squash. I've been selling a lot of it down at the road. I've sold some of it to friends because we have way more squash than we are ever going to eat. Let's just say by the time winter is over, I think we're going to be pretty squashed out. So besides harvesting and preserving these foods, putting them away in the garage, and then also now pulling weeds the size of trees out of my mom's garden, another thing that transpires every fall is getting firewood. And because we try to heat our house basically solely with wood heat to cut down on the electric bills, it requires a lot of wood. I've struggled in the past sometimes with getting firewood not having a bad attitude because usually it's cold and the day is really long and half the time it rains, and you have to drag trees off of mountainsides, and it's usually just kind of exhausting. However, this year was just totally different because my mother and father-in-law were so sweet. They offered to take Carrie for 2 days. And so Danny and I were able to go up on the mountain and just get tons of wood. And we had so much fun together. We laughed until we cried. It was just so fun. And honestly, it was some of the fondest memories from this fall. When I see sights like this driving around where we live, I just wonder, how can heaven be more beautiful? It's just stunning and so utterly perfect. And here where we live in Washington State, I just think there's this unprecedented, beautiful contrast between these really rough, rugged, dark, dense, tree-filled mountains. And then all of a sudden you'll just find this little crack in a valley, and there will be these beautiful tilled fields that are still being worked by farmers around here that have worked these lands for hundreds of years. These two polar opposites make me think so much of the beautiful green that is here all year round, and yet also the fading colors of fall, and how somehow they're so different and yet they tie together and complement each other so incredibly well. It seems there's something about the fall for me that really beckons me inside, and I find myself a bit more inspired to spend more time over the stove and cooking more in-depth meals, making bread, doing things that usually I just don't feel I have the time to do in the summer. And maybe it's the fact that it's starting to grow more chilly outside, and so something warm that's cooked in the oven for a long period of time just sounds more appealing. Or maybe it's just the scent that always makes me think of fall, the smell of fresh bread or freshly baked cookies or some type of cinnamon and apple potpourri on the stove. There's just these different things about fall that I absolutely love. And so this fall, I have found myself in the kitchen a bit more than I have over the summer. And I think everyone's grateful for that, because my cooking skills, I just feel, have been so lacking this year. And I've been very disappointed with a lot of the meals that I've been making lately. You know, something I find so beautiful about being a homemaker is the fact that every season is so different, and every time of the year demands so many different things from you that the season before might have not demanded or might have not taught you. And I find this to be such a wonderful joy, because I never feel bored. I never feel like I'm doing the same thing again and again, because in the spring, there's gardens to till, and in the summer, there's things to preserve, and in the winter, I have more time to turn inward and focus on different hobbies and skills that I'd like to acquire that in the summer I just don't have the same amount of time to do. And I feel so blessed to have this privilege because of being a homemaker, and because of just spending a whole lot more time living a lifestyle that's kind of focused more around the seasons of the year. Our mornings and evenings are usually my very favorite times during the day. The mornings, because it's just a fresh new day with a brand new start, with things to do on to-do lists, and just time to spend together over breakfast. But then in the evening, I always find it really special too, being back together as a family. And the last couple of evenings, I've been making soup typically and bringing it over to our remodel. And Danny and I and Carrie have been eating together on the days when I'm not able to go and work with him during the day. And this has just been such a fun, special time in our lives with our almost 2-year-old daughter, and just spending time together as a little family in the evenings in the chilly outdoor weather with little lights hung up so we can actually see what it is that we're eating out of our bowls. And here we are, living such an ordinary life and yet celebrating the most extraordinary of moments. And I wouldn't change it for anything. We are truly, truly blessed.